Hey all, let us build a counter app ourselves. For that, let us drag our Flutter folder into our VS Code. Now we can come down to the terminal and write Flutter create counter underscore app. Let us click enter. Alright, our project has been created. Now I'm going to open up my folder and grab my project into the VS Code. Now, the list of files that you see on the left are your configuration files for this project. The Android folder has all the native code for Android. The iOS has every native code for iOS. Lib is where we will be writing our own code. Test, it's something that we do not need for now. Web is the file that has all the important and necessary files for deploying your Flutter app to the web. If I come down to main.dart, this code here is a app template that Flutter shipped as a bundle with the SDK. Now we can run it to see what happens with this one. Now, before I click run to install our Flutter app into my simulator, I'm just going to remove all the previous apps that I had. Alright, so now we're done. Let's click run. Alright, here we are. We have our widget inspector page up here. This page shows everything, all the widgets that are planted as a tree. For example, in the root we have our My app, which extends Material app, and then so on and so forth. For now, we do not need this. So this code here, from top to bottom, is the code for this app. Here, if we click this button, we see this number being going up. Now what I do want to do now is first remove all the code and recreate this app, show you how to make this, and then we are going to iterate on this. We will remove this button. on the next part and then bring here 3 new buttons. For that, first let us go up here and remove everything. And now if I save, you see we have an error because we do not have anything in the code now. Now I can just start writing import material. So we have the import line, import package flutter material / dart. If we come down, we can start to write void main first bracket second bracket. Now important is void main. This function is necessary because this is the starting point for Dart programming language. Without the main function, your Flutter app will never run. If we come inside the second bracket, this is the body of the function where we can initiate a new method, run app, where we are going to initiate a class name, my app. Now if we come outside the second bracket body, we can start to write STL, which will give us a quick suggestion to Flutter stateless widget. Here we will just rename this widget exactly the same way we have named it here, my app. Now if I save it, we still do not have anything. So let's go to the widget class. Widget is something that reflects onto our UI, so of course it has to return you something that you can see on the screen. If we double click on container, we can change it to material app. Now if we save it, we have a material app up here. We can go inside the material app, and if we press Control space, we have a lot of attribute that we can use. For now, I'll be using home, where I'll pass a scaffold widget, and if I Control save now, you see we have a scaffold here. So what was it? If I go out, material app, this widget here, material app, gave us this button to click that opens up a new app, an empty new app. And then within the new app, we gave it a first page, home. This attribute takes a first page. The first page is scaffold. Now inside the scaffold is a very smart page that knows where to take an app bar, a bottom navigation bar, bottom sheet, drawers, and so on and so forth. Here, we can press Control space again to see what are the attributes that we have. We are going to use app bar for now, app bar, and if I press Control space now, you see we have an app bar here. Also within the app bar widget, we can pass a title which takes a text widget where we can write counter space app. Alright, now if we come outside the app bar, this app bar widget, we can press Control space again. This will give access to the body attribute of the scaffold. Within the body, we just want to pass a center widget which takes a child, which in turn takes a new widget. We will be passing the text widget for the child and write view your clicks 5. So we have it here. If we didn't use the center widget, this line here would be up here. I'll show you now. See, without the center widget, our text goes on the top left corner of the screen. But if we wrap it with the center, it comes exactly to the center. Also, if you would like to increase the size of the text, you can come just after the string within the text widget, of course, press comma, and if you press Control space, you can see what are the attributes that a text widget takes. Here we have style, which in turn takes a text style widget, where we can pass a font size of 30 for now. Now, you see this blue squiggly lines here. Flutter is trying to tell you you could use a const keyword here, which would tell Flutter that this text will never change. Also, we can come up here and give a const. Alright, this is what Flutter wanted. Also, this my app state will never change. So here we can come up and write const. We will change everything as we need to. For now, we will just follow all the necessary guidelines that Flutter wants us to follow. So, this is it. You use const for anything that will never change. If something changes, we change it from const to something else. Or we could just remove the const. Alright, now we can come down after the center because the body takes the parent widget of center. If we come outside the center, we are again just inside the scaffold, where we can pass a floating action button, which in turn takes a floating action button widget, which takes a required parameter on pressed. For now, we will just pass a first bracket and a second bracket to pass an empty function that does nothing. Also, if we press comma, we have a child here, child parameter, where we can pass icon widget, which icon widget takes icons dot. For now, we will use add. You could use a lot of other things. For now, icons dot alarm access, so many things. We are just going to be going with add. If I press Ctrl S, we have the button here. Now this icon can also be a const because it doesn't have to change. This icon will be here forever. Now, this is it. This is the UI part of the app. We know that Dart was primarily built with UI in mind. And so this was our first goal, which we have achieved well. If we come to the state class now, just above the override, we can start making a variable here, variable myCounter equals to 0. We do not need this line. Also, we do not need const now. Alright, now why do we need this variable? We know this string is a hard-coded value, which means it's never going to change. So if there is something that we want to change here, we have to make a variable. A variable is a container that can change its value. So we need a variable that will change, and this variable we will pass in this string so that whenever this value changes, our number changes. So we can just come here where we have a 5, remove it, press $, and you see we have our myCounter in the drop-down menu. Now we have a new error because now we have something that changes, so we cannot use the const here. But for this text style, we are not changing it, so we can keep it with the const constrainer. Okay. Now, if we press plus, of course nothing is going to happen because in programming you have to specify everything, and what happens for this button we have never specified. OnPressed is an action that happens each time you click the button, which we have kept empty with this empty function, first bracket and second bracket. So now we will be making a new function and which we will be hooking up here so that every time we press here, the function is going to fire up and the number will go up. So if I come after the variable, we can make a new function void increment counter first bracket, second bracket. Here we are going to pass a logic of myCounter going up by 1. myCounter plus plus. This is the logic of increasing the value by 1. Now if we copy this name and come down to our onPressed, we can paste it here. Our app is fully logical, and if we press the button, it should go up. Now, the problem is our first widget here is a stateless widget. A stateless widget cannot change. For that, we have to use a stateful widget. We can press on the stateless widget, go to the quick action button, and press to convert to stateful widget. If we press Ctrl space now, Ctrl S, still our app will not work. This is because just changing our state to a stateful widget is not enough. We have to pass a setState method around the logic that we need to change. For example, if we come down to our method here, we can remove this or Control X to cut it and write set state. Here we can pass it. And now if we press Control S, we can click for the number to go up. So this was it for the first part of this app. Now I want to remove this button and bring here 3 new buttons. One to go up, one button to go down, and one to bring the value to 0. For that, before we start with our second part, it's necessary that when you are in your stateless part of this app, you do not have this to override. So you just write after the line my apex and stateless widget, and then you start to write your variables and functions and all of the things. But when you have a stateful widget, it's important to understand it's always better to have your logic just above the second override. So you have an override here and an override here. It's better that you have all your logic just above the second override. Alright, now let's come down and let us remove the floating action button. So our floating action button is now gone. Also, now we want a series of widgets that stacks one under the other. For that, we are also going to remove this center here, so we do not have anything in the body. Now, what we need here is a column. Column takes a children which can place many widgets on top of each other or beneath each other. If we come here, we can pass text and write again your clicks. And we can directly just press $my counter. Alright, so the column stacked everything on the top left bar of the screen. If we want to bring it again to the center, we can come to the column, wrap it with center, press Ctrl S. Now it's on the center of the cross-axis direction. If we want it to come in its main axis, we can come to the column, press enter, and press Ctrl space. You see we have a main axis alignment. Main axis alignment argument takes a main axis alignment widget where we can pass the dot center in. So now we have it here. Again, to bring this text up or to increase the size of the text, we can press a comma just after the string, write style, pass a text style widget with a font size of 30. Also, we can come just in front of the text style and write const. Okay. Now what we want is to have buttons just underneath it. So within this children parameter, if we come just after the text, we can pass elevated button. Elevated button takes a function and a child. For the child, we want to pass a text widget that says +1. Please make sure that you pass comma after every bracket. Also, while we are in the subject of comma, semicolon within the widget tree will only be used after material app. For example, if we had something else here instead of material app, we would have a semicolon here for that new widget. Anything that comes after return, for example, return material app, so material app will have the semicolon. Anything that comes after the return will have the semicolon. Alright, so now we have the button here, and we can come to its onPressed and give it the same name, increment counter, that we made here to go up by 1 value. Now if you press this, it goes up. We can copy this button, come down and paste it 2 more times. This I'll change to 0 because this I want to come to 0, and here I want -1. But for all the 3 buttons, we are pointing it to this exact same function. So, of course, whatever we click, it will only go up. So we can come up and make two new functions, one to bring it to 0, one to bring it by -1. Here we can write void 0 counter, first bracket, second bracket. Within the second bracket we can pass set state, where I want to set my counter to 0 whenever we press here. For the decrement action we can come down, write void decrement counter, first bracket, second bracket, and for the second bracket we are just going to be passing set state, where we will write my counter --. Alright, now before we hook these functions up, it's very important that everything that you name has to be logical. See, for my variable I have named it my counter because this number is a counter that keeps count of how many clicks I have. This function named increment counter also tells you what this function does. It increments the counter by a single value. The 0 counter is also very obvious, which says whenever you click the counter, whenever you click the button, the counter is zeroed. As well as for the decrement counter, whenever you click this button or whenever you fire up this function, it brings the value by -1. So if we come here, we have increment button for +1. We can change it to 0 counter for 0 and decrement counter for -1. Now if I save it and before I run everything, also here we can pass const because this text will never change. Now if I hot restart it, if I press up, it's going up. If I press down, it's going down. If I press 0, it comes to 0. So this was it for this app. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.